Curfew is now in effect. All unauthorized citizens must stay indoors.
Good morning, Miss Garcia.
Good morning, sunshine. I miss you. I could kiss you right now.
Holy fuck.
Stay safe, sane, and sanitized.
What is this? Songbird the movie. The latest blockbuster movie dreamt up by Michael Bay that he thought about back in March, but he's releasing in 2021. And this movie, like so many other movies of this whole dystopian genre, are really an example of predictive programming. And I'm going to get into what all of that is today, especially in regards to this movie. Stay tuned. It's the Unconventional Entrepreneur Show. Welcome to the Unconventional Entrepreneur Show. I'm your host, Glenn Kowalski. Every week on this channel, you'll find new videos to help liberty-minded entrepreneurs and investors just like you find more freedom and liberty. So be sure to hit the subscribe and the notification buttons so you never miss your chance to find more freedom in this unfree world. Well, it has now been about 11 months since this whole COVID-19 pandemic nightmare started. And back in March, when the rest of us were being told 2 weeks to flatten the curve, Michael Bay was out there dreaming up a brand new blockbuster, telling us what's about to really happen. But there's so much more to this movie than just the thriller and the love story that it's being sold as. What it does is it combines aspects of predictive programming and this trauma-based mind control that the CIA used during Operation Mockingbird to manipulate the news media and keep people under control. And of course, Operation Mockingbird is still going on today. So what is predictive programming? Well, according to author and speaker Alan Watts, predictive programming is this subtle form of psychological manipulation and conditioning that the media provides in order to equate the public with planned societal changes that are going to be implemented by our leaders. If and when those changes actually happen, the public is already kind of familiar with what's going on and it doesn't come as quite as much of a shock. And they're going to kind of accept it as this natural progression of what's going on. And that kind of leads to, or theoretically leads to, less public resistance and less of a commotion around these big events that are heading our way. So really, to summarize, in other words, predictive programming is this theory that the government, the elite, or some other higher ups, whoever it is that's controlling these things, is using these fictional tools like books and movies to make the population more accepting of future events, and whether they're expected events or planned events in the future. And as you're going to see in a minute, Songbird is full of these types of examples. A few of the famous examples of this type of predictive programming, which is not necessarily confirmed, are things like David Icke. He claimed that the Sandy Hook shooting was predicted with subtlety in the film The Dark Knight. And Alex Jones, he says that the Mexican oil rig explosion from 2010 was predicted in the film Knowing that came out. There's been a ton of examples of predictive programming, thoughts around 9/11. The Simpsons has a ton of different events that people call predictive programming, and so many things. And while some of these are arguable, whether they really are, there's certain examples that are really too close to what actually happened to dismiss completely. But accusations of predictive programming are really nothing new. Back in 1898, there was a novella written about a big cruise liner with the name of Titan. And it hits an iceberg in the North Atlantic, and then it sinks to the bottom of the ocean. You might have some guesses as to what happened on April 5th, 1914, 14 years after that book was released. Well, that's right. There was a real boat called Titanic, and it hit an iceberg in the North Atlantic, and it sunk to the bottom of the ocean. I'm not going to get into the conspiracy theory stuff and the weeds on that, especially on the Titanic thing. There's a number of different conspiracy theories about people who were on that boat and who passed. But in the case of Songbird, it's really impossible to watch the trailer and not see that this type of prediction and even more so this type of psychological trauma-inducing preparation is being used. Songbird is set in 2024 when COVID-19 has mutated into COVID-23. The world is now a police state. There's these massive quarantine camps, and smartphones are being used to control the people. According to the trailer, the world is now in its 4th year of lockdown. So the lockdown never ended from the lockdown we're living in today. And infected Americans are being ripped out of their homes. They're being forced into quarantine camps that are called Q zones. And in these Q zones, there's no escape. There's a few people who are fighting back against this oppression.
Rises to over 110 million.
All infected Americans are being forced into quarantine camps.
Well, there's nothing ominous or predictive about that, right? Well, except for the CDC is already releasing guidelines on how to create these camps. Except in the CDC documents, they're called green zones, not Q zones. It has proposals in it for household level, neighborhood level, camp sector level. Canada is already reportedly building these camps all the way across the country. And then there's this.
Hey, whoa, I'm immune! I'm immune!
Songbird, of course, isn't the first or the only movie to introduce the idea of vaccine or immunity passports. Back in 2010, the National Film Board of Canada, it released a documentary called Outbreak, and it detailed how the government planned on rounding up citizens, forcing the wearing of tracking bracelets, and incarcerating anyone who refuses the vaccine.
If there are people who are non-compliant, there are definitely laws and public health powers that can quarantine people in mandatory settings.
Over the past number of months, back when it was still 2 weeks to flatten the curve, I had a number of people tell me that immunity passports, they're just a conspiracy theory, and those will never happen. Hell, up to today, people are still telling me that. But then there's this. And this. And this. Okay, everything we've talked about up till now could probably still be disputed and called, just your typical dystopian action movie, intermixed with a few lucky guesses of stuff that, we were told was never going to happen. Yeah, right. But there is more. First, it seems just a little bit suspicious that Songbird was the first major action film that was approved to be shot in LA when every other movie out there was canceled and stopped and put on hold and not allowed to shoot. And it's not like the people who are behind the making of this film are suspicious in any way. Or not. First of all, Songbird is being filmed by STX Entertainment, whose biggest investors include the Chinese multinational Tencent, whose division include medical and artificial intelligence divisions. And it's being financed by Honey Capital, who has direct investment ties to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. There's another name that hasn't come up during this pandemic. But perhaps the most telling is how this film is being produced in collaboration with digital content studio Invisible Narratives, whose mission it is to fuel a culture in partnership with people of influence. And they've been accused in the past of occult elite propaganda. And any case against that is really tough to dispute when you consider that their slogan is hidden in plain sight. Look, whether you believe in predictive programming or not, we know that this trauma-based propaganda happens. But regardless, why the fuck would you want to go see a movie that's about something we're already facing today, but a little bit worse? I mean, we are already inundated with COVID-19 panic fear porn on the news 24/7. And so many of the clips in this film are already going to be familiar to you. I mean, even if there isn't any predictive programming going on, who the hell wants to watch a movie about the hell that we're living through right now?
tensions rise as we enter the 213th week of lockdown.
They're already telling us that the lockdown in 2020 is not going to end. Who wants to put that kind of thought in your head? It's just like our endless war on terror, except that the virus now is causing us to have distrust of our neighbors. And if you're thinking to yourself, well, you just want to go see it so you can make yourself feel better about what's really going on right now, well then, aren't you kind of proving my point? Fortunately, people are starting to wake up. Just look at a few of the comments that are on the Songbird movies webpage. So if you're one of those people who's awake, why go waste money on this film? Where's the entertainment value in that? Use your time instead to grow your business, grow your income, protect your assets. Because if this movie really is a prediction for our future, you're going to want to be prepared when the shit hits the fan.